Today we are talking about the initiative that we have, and we do this every year, for work zone safety awareness, to advise motorists and remind motorists to slow down in work zones and travel safely on our highways. The cones that you see behind us reflect the lives that have been lost nationwide. 576 lives lost in work zone fatalities in 2010, and 15 of the cones represent lives lost right here in Louisiana. So we want to stress to motorists to pay attention to the signs, the speed limit, wear your seatbelt, and it's not just for the safety of the work zones, but it's for the safety of the drivers as well and passengers that travel our highways.
I think people have to understand that if you're caught for speeding or some hazardous citation in a work zone, it's double the fine. It's double the fine. If you cause a human life to be injured, you cause a human life to lose that, I mean, that's with you the rest of your life. And it was simply because you didn't slow down. That's why the penalties are double. That's why the enforcement is aggressive. That's why you see more law enforcement working in those areas, because it is important that we allow these workers to do their job. Double fines, double problems. Plus you can go to jail.
My name is Sherry LaBaugh. I'm the Louisiana Department of Secretary for the Department of Transportation and Development. Governor Bobby Jindal has declared the week of April 23rd through the 27th Work Zone Awareness Week. And this is for the purpose to remind drivers to drive safely in our work zones throughout the state. And not only in the work zones, but just our roads in general. And the theme for this year is a vested interest in safety. And we at the department, we have taken opportunities to wear vests and promote this by putting on vests, taking pictures, posting those pictures to remind people and our staff, and so they can remind their families to drive safely through work zones. You're going to be hearing today from Carl Highsmith, Project Delivery Team Leader with our Federal Highway Administration, Colonel Michael Edmonson, who is the Superintendent of the Louisiana State Police, Lieutenant Colonel John LeBlanc, Executive Director, Louisiana Highway Safety Commission, and Miss Debra Lemoine, who is the spouse of the late DOTD employee Ronald Bourdlawn. All of us are here with a common goal, and that is to stress to you the importance of driving safely. Behind me, you'll see numerous cones. Each of these cones represent a life lost in a work zone. Nationally, 576 fatalities in 2010. And the cones set in front, 15 of them represent lives lost right here in Louisiana in 2010 in work zones, 5 of which occurred in the greater Baton Rouge area. These numbers deeply upset me, and they should concern you too. And therefore, it should hopefully encourage you to take action and take personal responsibility as you drive through the work zones. As I said, later you're going to hear from Debra Lemoine. Her husband lost his life in a work zone area while he was doing survey work in Baton, Louisiana. He had more than 10 years of dedicated service to the Louisiana Department of Transportation. And Ms. Lemoine is going to share some of her thoughts with you today to encourage you to be safe on roadways, because this was a tragic, tragic accident that could have been avoided. What I'd like to do is dedicate a moment of silence to Ronald. So please pause with me as we think of Ronald and his family. Through Destination Zero Deaths, I want to talk about the partnership that we've had. These people behind me represent that partnership. Through our efforts and through your efforts as citizens working with us, the fatality rate has dropped 30% from 2007 to 2010. In 2007, 993 fatalities. 2010, 720, 30% drop. Destination Zero deaths is about reducing the number of fatalities to zero, because one life lost is way too many. And we're going to continue this initiative to reduce the fatality rate even lower. So let me tell you about some of the initiatives that we've done throughout the state. It's about education. It's about enforcement. It's also about the strategic initiatives and improvements that we've put on our highways. 2,100 miles of centerline rumble strips have been installed. These help motorists, when they cross over that center line, it helps to prevent head-on collisions. You've probably noticed our cable barriers, 20 miles between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. These have significantly reduced the head-on collisions that occur when people leave the roadway and possibly head into the opposing lanes of traffic. In addition to that, on our interstates, we have installed mile markers that are very noticeable to the driver, so that if an accident does happen, they know where they are on the interstate, and we can get the responders there quickly in order to save lives. We've also installed new ITS cameras, 50 of them, to help with the communication efforts between the traveling public, operators, and again, emergency responders. Although this is very encouraging, we still have a long way to go. And motorists need to do their part. And I want to tell just a personal experience. When I first started working for the Department of Transportation, I actually flagged traffic on I-10, and I can tell you what a daunting experience it is to stand there behind a barrier and to flag people over to get over into the next lane, and to have all the vehicles just whizzing by and hoping that people are paying attention to what they're doing. So from personal experience, please, please respect our workers that are out there. And it not only will save lives with our workers, but again, with you and your passengers. You know, so many of us now, there's so many distractions. And I think we forget when we get in the car that is our number one priority. When you get behind a wheel, that is what you're doing. You're driving your car safely. No texting, it's against the law. Refrain from using your cell phone. No reading the paper, putting on makeup. You're there to drive. Driving's not the secondary function. That is your primary function. So please, please drive safely through work zones, and urge your family members to do the same, and slow down within the work zones. Look at those advisory signs. They're there for a reason. And please, please wear your seat belts. Again, thank you for being here. And with that, Carl Highsmith is going to say some words to us from the Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning. I'm Carl Highsmith with the Federal Highway Administration. And today, here in Louisiana and all across the nation, we will celebrate and promote National Work Zone Awareness Week. The Federal Highway Administration is an agency dedicated to the safe and efficient movement of people and goods across our nation's highways, and dedicated to reducing congestion in those work zones. The safe and efficient movement of traffic through our work zones is a major concern to us. As we address congestion in our work zone, we help to improve safety as we go through those work zones. Keep in mind, the most common type of crash in a work zone is a rear-end crash. Smoother traffic flow through our work zones will not only help to reduce those type of crashes, but it also help with driver frustration, reducing that driver frustration and having safer drivers on our roads, and also help with quicker project completion. The Federal Highway Administration is actively pursuing research where we can do better things in our work zones. A variety of ways we go about doing that is with better engineering, education, enforcement, increased cooperation with public safety agencies, and regulation. The Federal Highway Administration supports research in various areas, and we also promote design features and hardware that help make work zones a lot safer. We also want to enforce work zones so we make them similar throughout the nation so that when you drive from one state to another, the work zones are the same and they're all safe as we drive across. We also promote regulations such as workers wearing high visibility clothing in nighttime and in daytime work zones, and also making sure that the appropriate signs and warnings are in place from zone to zone. We also research and demonstrate ways where we can reduce the time of construction so that we have work zones that are much shorter duration. We also promote the use of different materials and construction methods to make sure our roads are more durable so that way we have to reconstruct them less frequently, thereby resulting in less frequent work zones. We also provide technical training to engineers, law enforcement, and first responders in ways we can make those work zones better. Also, we're promoting new campaigns aimed at new and younger drivers to help them also safely navigate those work zones. As the Secretary has mentioned, as you look behind us, there are over 500 cones that are sitting behind us, 15 of them resulting in deaths right here in Louisiana. Even though we may be able to clear the wreckage from a work zone on a highway, and the memory of that wreckage may fade away, the loved one that's left behind, that memory does not fade away. When we go and pick up these cones off this lawn, underneath each one of these little cones, there's going to be a small faded area. That small faded area represents the memories of someone who died on our work zones who did not get to go home that day. It is our job and it is your job to make sure that those memories don't fade away, but also to make sure that the number of those memories, a number of those cones, a number of those crashes gets smaller year and year and year. And if we do that, we will definitely have much better and much safer work zones. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Secretary LeBlanc, for inviting me here today. As I have 34 years experience with the Louisiana State Police. I started when I was 10. I was here when we first started doing this, when this department did it. And it makes me so proud to stand here today because I see every day, and my troopers and public safety officers see every day the work that the men and women of the Department of Transportation does for the state of Louisiana. And my hats are off to them. They not only deserve our attention, they deserve our gratitude. And they also deserve that every year, as we remember police officers that paid the ultimate sacrifice, that we remember the men and women and the job they do every single day to make our highways safe. It's so important that as we succeed as a state and we grow as a state, that our infrastructure has to also. You know, as I sit here this morning, I look at these cones. I had a chance to visit with Miss Lemoine, who you're going to talk to in a few moments. And she told me the story about her husband in 1987, I believe, who was standing in a curve of a construction area. The car didn't slow down, missed all the signs that were there, and hit him. And 2 days later, he died. We've got to remember what those people do every single day. We've got to remember that he paid the ultimate sacrifice in trying to make sure that work zone area was safe. And I also think back in 1998, 14 years ago, my own trooper, Hung Lee, on the raised portion of I-55 north of LaPlace, he was simply providing security in a work zone area when he was rear-ended. His car burst into flames, his body burnt unbelievably, was pulled out of the car, and about 2 weeks later, he died. It's so important that we take this moment every single year, if not every single day, to remember what's being done across the state of Louisiana. My commitment as superintendent is that we will do everything we can in public safety and law enforcement to make sure these work zones are as safe as they can be. We can do our job, but the public has to be able to do theirs. They've got to work with us to make sure that, you know what, the little bit of time it's going to take to improve and make these improvements on our highway system and infrastructure pales in the amount of time that you're going to have to wait just to get through that area. Work with us, help us. These workers deserve that attention and they deserve our gratitude. Thank you, Secretary.
Good morning. My name is John LeBlanc. I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the Highway Safety Commission. Thank you, Secretary LeBlanc, for inviting me and my partners here today to share this with you. A vested interest in safety, it's an appropriate title. It serves to remind all drivers and motorists of the people behind the work zones. Safe driving in work zones means being prepared before and during travel through a work zone. Motorists should be ready to encounter rough surfaces, uneven pavements, slower speeds, and traffic cues that often present a need to slow down abruptly. More importantly, drivers should drive sober and always wear their seat belts. It's appropriate for us to acknowledge this week as Work Zone Safety Awareness Week in Louisiana and pay honor to the workers, drivers, and motorists who's lost their lives in work zone crashes. In addition to the construction projects, the Destination Zero Death initiatives include education, public information, enforcement efforts, all designed to reduce impaired driving, increase seatbelt usage. The Highway Safety Commission is honored to be part of this initiative and honored to serve with our partners today.
Good morning. My name is Debra Lemoine. I would like to thank the Department of Transportation for inviting me to come and speak. Although it is still hard for me to talk about this, at the time of this accident, work zone accident 23 years ago, I was married to Ronald Boardlaw, who had been employed with DOTD for 10 years. At that time, Ronald was working on a statewide survey crew. The crew was doing surveying near Baton, Louisiana. Although work zone signs had been set up with reduced speed signs, a man came into work zone not paying attention and speeding into the area. Where my husband at that time was crossing the road, the car hit him and was brought to the emergency room. Later, 2 days later, passing away. People slow down in the work zone area. Tragedy can happen anytime. I sure wasn't expecting it on the day they called me. They just need to be safe and slow down.
You have a personal connection with this. Tell us about it.
My husband, Ronald Boardlaw, had been working for the state for 10 years. And on February 8th, they were surveying in Baton, Louisiana, where a car came speeding down the highway and he was walking and the car hit him. And 2 days later, he passed away.
What's your thought as you take a look at the ceremony and all these cones that are set up here today?
I think it's a great thing what they did. Maybe something like this will make the people realize that they should slow down in work zone areas.
I think it's so important that we put reality, we put a personality on what this means here today, because just like Miss Boardlaw lost her husband back in 1989 simply in an area in a work zone in Baton, Louisiana, where he was just strictly trying to get people to slow down, and here someone didn't and they hit him, and 2 days later he died. And in 1998, one of my troopers, Hung Lee, was working on the raised portion of I-55 north of Laplace, simply trying to protect the workers in that area, and he was crashing the back of it. The car erupted in flames and he died a few weeks later. I think the public needs to see this, that this is not something that happens in other parts of the country. As we improve our infrastructure, as we make things better for those that travel on our highways in Louisiana, it's going to take time to do this. So we ask the public, slow down. Those few extra minutes, because you wasted or waited too much time to get there, or you get into an area, don't become frustrated. Understand those people are just doing their job. Those workers deserve our attention. They deserve our gratitude for what they're trying to make those highways better. And I think the message here today is simply slow down when you see areas in the state. We're trying to make the state better. And from a law enforcement perspective, we're trying to make sure those areas are safe. That's why we reduce the speed in those areas. That's why we ask you to slow down. And we try to do it in areas late at night, when there's not a lot of traffic out there. So it just is so incumbent on the public to help us. They've got to do their part. Law enforcement's going to do theirs. The public has to do theirs. We need to make sure these cones we see behind us, that those numbers get less and less each year. When I started as a trooper 34 years ago, I was here when we first did our first work zone safety press conference. And I've seen the stories come and go, but the message is still there. You've got to slow down, and people simply aren't doing that. One injury, one fatality is one too many. That's the message here today. Slow down, let these workers do their job.
every day people need to be vigilant. When they get behind the wheel of a car, they need to pay attention to the advisory signs. We put signs in construction zones for a reason. So if the speed limit sign says 45, you need to go 45 miles per hour. There's a reason that sign is there. We design our construction zones for certain speed limits, and it's important for people to read the signs. If it says there's the merge sign or a curve ahead sign, you need to pay attention to that and slow down and really pay attention to your driving and not have distractions such as talking on the phone, texting, which of course is against the law, reading the paper, or any other activities that you might be doing in the car.
If people have questions or like more information, what should they do?
What they should do is contact the Department of Transportation. We have a website here at DOTD, and contact us. We'll provide you with more information, and we can let you know where the construction zones are, because we do have numerous construction sites around Louisiana and some really significant construction going on our interstates.